got such a treat. You can come on in. Can we greet our students as they come? Awesome. Well, we are certainly in for a treat today. We're certainly, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So we're certainly in for a treat today. This is really going to be a special moment in time. Not only for our participants who will have introduced themselves in just a moment, but you guys that are here live with us, those that are checking us out on YouTube, and then everyone that hears and is impacted by what is shared today. Today is a wonderful day. It's a day in which is needed in our society, in any level of system that we have, to recognize a man that has done so much, a man that has moved mountains in many aspects for the sake of justice, for the sake of love, for the sake of peace. And so we are here, and I have many members from our wonderful Farmington Public Schools. We will go on to introduce ourselves. We're going to start here with Savannah, and then I will share with you what this discussion panel will look like and sound like.
Hello, my name is Savannah Thomas. I go to North Farmington High School. I'm a 12th grader, and I'm just very excited to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan McKinney. I go to North Farmington High School as well, and I'm a senior.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Anila, and I'm a freshman that goes to North Farmington High School.
Hi, I'm Kennedy Jones. I'm a senior at Farmington High School.
Hi, my name is Natasha Davis-Nichols, and I'm also a senior at Farmington High School.
Hi, I'm Layla Bagataya, and I'm a junior at Farmington High School.
My name is Wu. I'm a senior at Central.
I'm Isabella. I am a 7th grader from Howard Middle School. I'm Bernadette. I'm a 7th grader from East Middle School. I'm very excited for this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shivani, and I'm a freshman at Farmington High School.
Hi, everyone. My name is Moaz. I'm a senior at Farmington High School.
And welcome again. My name is Greg Smith. I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion of Farmington Public Schools. What you are going to experience here is a panel discussion that's going to center in the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so we have prepared 20 questions. In a sense, we're probably going to get through 4. And in that, you may hear all 11 of our panelists speak on a question. You may hear 2 of them. And so we'll go through. We've identified the questions in which we would like to center and begin with, and we'll go ahead and get started. This will run for approximately 40 minutes. After that time, hopefully someone will give me a heads up of some sort, and we will start a Q&A. At the time of the Q&A, you guys are free to ask any questions of our panelists, not any questions. We want to keep things centered on our theme for the day. And we will also pause for questions that any of our folks that are streaming in on YouTube would like to pose. And so if you are streaming from YouTube, you can feel free to put those questions in the comments. We'll write them down and we'll share them out with our wonderful students, our wonderful student leaders. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The students, what you can do is we'll send the microphone, and if somebody wants to speak on it or feed off of, you'll just raise your hand and Ms. Sexton will give it to you. All right, so I'm gonna start here. As a community of learners, how can we commit to making Dr. King's dream a reality? What supports might you need to make that happen?
So I think that one of our most important supports that we need be governmental, because I feel like the way our government is created is that we're very divided. At the moment, everything is political. Like the difference between the Democrats and Republicans is continuing to split us, and it's never going to get us anywhere. So I think government needs to come together first.
If I could go off of that, I definitely think it is governmental, but understanding through education too, because I know we start learning about history in the 3rd grade, but it's kind of Eurocentric topic. So I think if we expand out to more diversity and inclusion and talking about Middle Eastern and India and all other countries from a young age, we can really change as a community.
Yeah, kind of like adding on to what they said, it is very governmental. You know, we cannot really point out, we can't make the message without the government agreeing, you know? They have to be the first ones to condemn, to lead by example. But I think also it's very important that community members such as us have conversations like this. We make our input. You know, it doesn't change unless you change it. We're the peoples, we make the country. The country's here, government's here, but you're the ones who make it. And so we must be the ones to step up in injustice. Don't remain silent. We must be the ones to speak our voice, because if not us, then who?
I agree with everything that was said by my peers. And I would also just like to emphasize the diction of the question itself. It asks, as a community of learners, and I think that we need to emphasize the fact that one, we're a community, you know, we are all human beings, and even though we have different cultural backgrounds, different beliefs, we're still one community who should, you know, respect each other and love each other. And also as learners, I think there's something valuable in learning, you know, other people's culture and history and background. And I think that is really how we can commit to making Dr. King's dream a reality.
Thank you. Wonderful. And so in Dr. King's life and in his legacy, there were seemingly 6 areas or 6 pillars in which he focused. Poverty, wage, discrimination, housing, education, justice, and peace. Given the 6 pillars that Dr. King focused on his platform, how much has changed or how much has stayed or not changed? So in those 6 pillars, from whatever one you want to talk to, whether discrimination, housing, education, justice, peace, wage or poverty, how much has changed or how much has not changed?
A lot of times when you go to Ann Arbor, Detroit, all the big cities, you can see a lot of homeless people. I don't think much has changed about poverty. Discrimination has been a lot, but that isn't the only point that Dr. King stood for, and we should be supporting everything that he stood for, not just one aspect. I mean, if you can't live in a home and be sure that you can get by day to day, how can you focus on discrimination next?
My education piece, up until 9th grade, I was in DPS. And then in high school, I moved to Farmington Public Schools. And then I noticed that, like, academically, it's a lot of the same opportunities with the curriculum and all of that, but extracurricularly, it's like, for example, I was in band, and at DOS where I went to, it wasn't there were a lot less opportunities. We were less advanced. So when I came out to FBS, I found I was behind, like, because our band was like, we couldn't really focus, and also we were being taught like less advanced things. So I feel that it's not really equal in education.
I'm sorry, collect my thoughts. So I would like to first look at, well, justice in this country. So with how many people have like passed away due to police brutality and how those officers have not been convicted, I do not think justice has really prevailed. And with all of these topics, I just think that everything's gotten better at hiding itself. It's not as out and about. Like you don't see like outright racism, at least not here up north, but you see like in microaggressions. And the systems that we have, even up here, still are still only really benefiting white people, especially with poverty. So I feel like many people that you see who are the main people you see who are homeless are mostly Black people. And if they're not given the opportunities based on race, then how are we going to move past that?
I think there's definitely a lot of disparities within each one of these pillars. With the education system, there are definitely a lack of opportunity in the Black community and a lot of minorities. However, if we look here, like there's a lot of diversity, and I've had the privilege to live in Farmington Hills my whole life. So I have been able to be in a room full of Chaldeans or listen to Bosnian in its realist form, and that's just been so grateful for that. But I definitely think that we need to work to change, and it starts with us here. And that's why I'm so thankful to do this panel as well, because you hear from so many different ethnicities and backgrounds. And so we just need to work to continue to create peace and justice for the upcoming nation.
I'm gonna say housing. When you look at areas like Farmington Hills, they're extremely diverse. You know, this is, I think, one of the most diverse areas in the state of Michigan. But this area is considered a suburb. You look at it historically, you look at the housing, how it's built, you can tell it was, during a time it was predominantly white. There's been much integration in this area, and people of color who live here don't even have to necessarily be in the 1% or 10% to live here. So that's what has changed progressively when it comes down to housing. But there still needs to be a lot done. I'm going to use Detroit as an example. The heart of Detroit is very fixed up. Belle Isle has a nice fountain. Campus Martius has a nice, skating ring. But when I go past, I don't even gotta go a mile. When I look at some of the neighborhoods, the back, like the front, you look at the front, you look at the cover. But when I look at the back, the neighborhoods that are burnt down, the children who are living near houses that should have been condemned 30 years ago. My mother grew up with a house across the street from her that was condemned, and to this day it is still not fixed. So justice still has not been served. We don't acknowledge the redlining. We're not acknowledging the lack of investment, to be honest. We go to campus marches, we go to downtown Detroit, and we have fun in the lights, but who turns the lights on? It's the people who are living in those communities that we are not fixing up, that we do not care about. So I say it's housing that it's improved, but at the same time, there's still a long ways to go. And we're gonna get that done by voting, by looking at who really we need to hold accountable for not for putting more money in the areas that suburban families go on a nice highway to go to, but then not the people who are keeping them in office. So that's it.
Just a couple of responses.
One thing that I would like to talk about is peace. There's always going to be conflict in the world wherever you go. There's always going to be some conflict or social injustice that's going on. But I feel like it's definitely how you deal with that peace. I noticed that our responses kind of sort of have changed. I feel like peaceful protests are definitely the way to go. But now more recently, I feel like the protests while they're still peaceful most of the time, sometimes it can get a little bit out of hand. And I think we need to focus back in on the central issue that we're all working to fight towards.
I wanted to talk about the education piece. So if you look, as Will said, there's lots of opportunities here, but not elsewhere in not as rich areas. So not only that, I was going to talk about colleges. When you go to college, of course you have to pay. Not everyone has the money to be able to pay for such a grant education. But in the end, education has improved in some ways, but it also has regressed back to you have to be able to pay to get a good education.
I also did want to talk about education. So AP African American History was just like announced as a class, maybe like 2 years ago, I want to say. And I just think that it's 2023 and the fact that that's just happening now is kind of just saying how slowly like the progress is being made. Like while I do acknowledge that it is progress, the fact that it took this long to even have the idea brought up and then to make it a thing, I just think it's really crazy considering like how many advancements we see, like how many protests we are doing. I just kind of feel like it's hard to see the progress and like how to keep yourself going when you're seeing very little results. And then I also do want to talk about like education and like Black history that you learn in school. It's sort of the same things over and over again, like Rosa Parks, but you don't really hear about the young lady that was Rosa Parks before there even was Rosa Parks. You don't really hear about anybody else making big statements like MLK. Of course, he was amazing. He's like why we're here today. But at the same time, you do want to highlight the people that came before him and the people that died before him, and not just the big people that all the books are written about. So I feel like in school, we should definitely learn about the people behind the scenes and not just the people that are up front in everything.
Thank you. So this, the next question is one in which the students all selected, but I want to give some bit of an origin, and it was an effort, an intentional effort for me to kind of honor the work that Dr. Bobby Goodrum has laid and the path that she has done and the path that she has laid for our district. She actually held this position prior to me picking up the role in October. So I have a question in which she used last year that I'm going to share now. What do you think society would be like if everyone could be themselves?
I feel that so many people are insecure right now. They feel like they have to look one way or another, that they have to act one way or another to be accepted. I think if everyone could be themselves, everyone would kind of just be happy with who they are. Everyone would support everyone. I feel like wars and things big come from smaller things that create these huge ripples. And if we can go back to the very start, make everyone not insecure, make everyone secure, and that they can feel that they're totally happy with who they are and no one needs to change that. I think that those ripples could be so big and change so much for the better.
I love this question, but at the same time, it's asking what would it be like, but we need to think about how do we get there? How do we get it to where everybody can be themselves? I think we really need to, like they just said, we need to make or push it that people can be less insecure and that people can be confident in who they are. We also need to think about if you're pushing something, if you push somebody too much, then they're want to be so many things that it's going to be hard to choose. And if you think about it like that, we don't have to choose. We can be so many people at once. We don't have to be one thing. We don't have to be another thing. We can be 5 different things, and that should be okay.
I think the interesting thing that when I read this question is that like my brain almost can't like wrap itself around it. It's kind of like it almost feels like we would have to like restart the world in order for this to become possible. But I think that through dismantling a lot of like ideas and concepts of race and gender and realizing the fluidity behind a lot of identities and how they can intersect, we can, I think we can hopefully reach a point where everyone can be themselves.
I agree with everything that was mentioned by my peers. And when I think about your responses, it reminds me a lot of mental health and mental wellness, which I think is just an integral part of activism and advocacy in general. First of all, you can't take care of your community if you don't take care of yourself. That's something my mom taught me. And so when I think about what society would look like if everyone could be themselves, that's kind of an impossible utopia idea. I mean, innately, we compare ourselves to other people. You walk into a room, you say, oh, they have nicer shoes than me, they have nicer clothes, I like their hair, they're prettier. That's natural as humans. And so I think, honestly, the way that everyone could be themselves is through promotion of mental well-being and taking care of your mental health, because it's not going to be a utopia. Like, nobody's ever going to feel perfect all the time. Nobody's ever going to feel confident all the time. But if we can come together as a community and uplift people who, are dealing with different mental struggles, because we all do, then I think that's how we create a more inclusive world and create a society in which people can feel more free to express themselves.
First of all, we need to address something. Hatred and insecurity are the enemies of inequality. Like how she just said, obviously you're always going to compare yourself to someone, but the things we're comparing each other about are obsolete and not important. We talk about such little insignificant things, like what kind of shoes we're wearing, what kind of clothes we're wearing, what kind of makeup we're wearing, and all that really isn't really that important. If you're having fun with who you are and you're being who you want to be, I don't think it should be comparable things like someone that has a better opportunity than you do. Like, the things that we compare each other to are so insignificant. We as a society give meaning to things that are often insignificant. And that is what's keeping everybody from being themselves. Because if everybody would be themselves, then I don't think we'd be in this position. We wouldn't compare things to others that don't mean anything. People just want to be insecure. Because insecurity, I forget the saying, but it's, okay, was it insecurity always wants company? Something like that? I forget, but it's like something like insecurity always wants company. So if we're building a community of people that are insecure and keeps pushing down people from having individuality.
Okay, so when I looked at this question, I was like, what does that really mean? Because we are basically a mosaic of everyone we meet. So being yourself, I feel like, leads to acceptance more. Like, you have to accept who you are in order to grow. And if everybody can accept themselves, we can grow as a nation. We can start to look at the insecurities and restarting the world, because we can't, comparison is the biggest thing that happens and that leads to insecurities, but acceptance is where we can go from, especially.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with all my colleagues completely. I feel like I kind of read this question in a way of how would the world be if everyone embraced themselves? And I first want to say it would be peaceful, obviously. I think that we all can do it, because I think a lot of people have a misconception that in order to be at peace with somebody, in order to live amongst somebody, you must fully accept their way of life. Now, I don't mean that you can hate someone. You may not respect my way of life, but you can't intrude on it. So you must we have to have a respect. There has to be respect. And I think with this question, I feel like that's what it really goes into. We all don't have to agree with how we live, but we have to respect the fact that we live that way. You can live amongst somebody else without necessarily wanting to live the same life as them. I have many friends, this is what Farmington Public Schools taught me. I've grown up around a many diverse group of friends. I have one friend specifically who, me and him, we are both very political, but we don't have the same political values that much. But his values, though, they're educated. They're not coming from a place of hate. But, a lot of his values are driven by his religion. He's Muslim, his religion is Islam, but my values are driven by my religion, Christianity. And so we will have philosophical conversations. Even this weekend, we had one talking about if our religions were really right and stuff. We literally were saying to each other, I was like, no, mine's right. He's like, no, mine's right. We had this conversation. And although we have completely different views on certain things, we still live amongst each other, because I have a respect for him. I don't believe in the same as him, but I have respect for him. That's how it has to go. This world will grow. We will have a country that's at peace as long as we can respect each other believing differently, as long as it's not harming someone. But bottom line, it's respect. And I think that that will create peace in this country. Everyone will be able to be themselves.
I think we would definitely see a lot more advancements in society, morely because I feel like a lot of people are geared towards a specific path just because they feel it's more acceptable to society to go down this specific path. And if everyone were just to embrace their kind of their personality, what they want, and do what they feel is right, I feel like we would have a lot more advancements because everyone would be morally in different fields.
And so I'm gonna keep that common thread of that question. But now our responses are gonna go towards the adults that are in our lives. And so the question is what role do the adults in your lives have in the development of your authentic self?
So I think that adults in our lives play a big part because when you're young, the people around you kind of shape who you become. So if you grow up in a house with a lot of hate, for example, like if you grow up where everyone hates the color blue in your house. Look, I don't want to get too specific, but everyone hates the color blue in your house. You grow up, you're like, oh, I hate the color blue. I see somebody wearing the color blue. I'm like, oh, I hate that person because they're wearing the color blue, and you don't know anything different. So I think it's important that the adults around you kind of let you kind of gain your own thoughts and be your own person, and they don't force their beliefs and their ideas on you, because that doesn't really show who you are. That just kind of shows who your parents are and like who the people are that are around you. So I think it's important that yes, they do guide you and help you, but at the same time they let you draw your own conclusions and not kind of tell you how the world is supposed to be, but they show you how you can have the world like influence you and help you.
I definitely agree with what Kennedy said. I'm sorry. I think that adults in our lives have to realize that we have a lot of influence, outside influence from what they can control in our lives, like especially parents. It's obviously great for them to be supporting and to create a healthy family environment and house environment, but unless you're like Rapunzel stuck in a tower, you go to school, you interact with people outside of your home, and you'll have possibly other opinions from your parents, or just you're shaped by more than your family, even though it definitely is a big part of who you are. So I think the most important thing is just to cultivate a healthy family environment.
I think it's a big thing that your parents accept you to try different things. We're gonna use the color blue, like, it's like a thing right now. You like the color blue, that's your favorite color. They're okay with that. You like the color purple, that's your favorite color. They're gonna be okay with you changing who you are to feel more comfortable with yourself. And accepting people, and accepting you and accepting other people is gonna teach you to do the same thing. And I think we have a world of people who accept everybody, then we're on the right track.
I think that sometimes while adults want to support us, they accidentally end up holding us back because in trying to support us, they instill their beliefs into us instead of trying to let us draw our own conclusions. And so while I love that our parents, our teachers, all the adults who care want to support us and help get us there, I also think that they should kind of let us have a little bit more free reign, because if we don't have free reign, how are we going to learn how the world works ourselves? How are we going to get to our own conclusions, learn who we really want to be, not what they want us to be?
I definitely think that growing up in Farmington public schools, I was always taught and I was always reinforced by my parents that everyone has their own set of moral codes or ethics that they follow and they believe. Even if you don't agree with those ethics, you still have to respect them. And you are free to share your own opinion in this world. Just because you don't agree with someone doesn't mean you don't have, that doesn't mean that you just don't stand up for what's right.
This question is really nice because adults doesn't mean like just parents. So in school, of course, there's always adults teaching us. And when you go to school and you're learning from like a single teacher, and the way that they teach, it like doesn't fit in with you, you realize that you as a person don't really like this style of teaching. So I think blue is the theme right now. So if they're saying that something's blue and not purple, you're like, no, I don't mess with this like blue style of learning. So in the end, it's always that you as a person will learn more about yourself through your interactions with others, and parents, of course, will help develop that process, as will other teachers and adults in your life.
It's a train. So, oh, sorry. So to answer the question, big or like, not saying my parents, guys, not saying my parents. I'm looking at my parents right now. So I'm saying that a lot of parents want a lot of mini-me's. I see that a lot of times, especially like very conservative households. People are always speaking about like how they got out of their conservative way of thinking, but the only way they did in the first place is because their parents pushed it on them. That's why I truly do love the internet so much, because it pushes a lot for like individuality and learning different perspectives, which is very important in our current day-to-day society. Like I feel like parents are the only reason why like so much hatred is still here, or like adults that lord over children in general, because most of the beliefs you get, like the basic beliefs, come from your parents. So like, for example, the theme is the color blue today. So if your parents just keep telling you that the color blue sucks over and over and over again, then you're gonna go out into the world, what else are you gonna know? What else is your frame of reference? Like, and this can connect to the real world for various reasons. But it's gonna mess you up, like, especially if you're not really allowed to express anything else in your house. Like if you have this belief but your parents are not that belief and they're really like aggressive about it, you're gonna want to hide it from them. So not saying that with you guys. I'm just using this as an example. I'm taking hypotheticals right now. Please don't laugh. But overall, parents even want a lot of mini-me's, and a lot of people that share the beliefs, they want like a combined think chamber of hatred of the color blue. And it contributes to a lot of the hatred in our society. Woohoo. Oh my, I don't know why I said that.
Great. So I'm gonna take one more comment from this, and then we're gonna move on, because there's a question that you guys desperately want to get to. And there's one right before that. Yeah, I put about 4 or 5 questions.
Okay, so the adults in my life have played a huge role in the development of my authentic self. I think I just want to take this like as an opportunity to pay homage to my parents. I'm very proud to, not only come from a unique cultural and ethnic background. I'm Black and Chaldean Assyrian. And so coming from those two backgrounds, I can relate with a multitude of different identities. And I think that is just such a beautiful thing. But I also came from a very open-minded family. My dad is in the teachers union. And so for us, it was a normal weekend activity to, go canvassing, go knocking on doors, educate people, encourage them to vote. And I think that is something that I'm just so passionate about and I'm so grateful for. And I think if all adults were like my parents, we'd have such a great world. They always I'm so grateful to learn from them and also for the fact that they're always open to learning from me. I just think education is such a beautiful thing. Like learning from other people is such a beautiful thing. And I just wanted to take that opportunity to, pay homage to my parents and thank them. And also today's my dad's birthday. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, so, in the letter, the Birmingham jail, Dr. King, made this comment. He says, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. What do you think he meant by that? I'm gonna take three.
I think what he meant by that was when one of us are down, we all are down. I think a lot of times, one of the biggest issues in this country is that we tend to think that as long as we are good personally, that's just gonna make everything okay. That's what people call Americans selfish. We don't understand that we're all in this together. Martin Luther King, I had a discussion with one of my friends about this actually. And we were talking about the civil rights movement, and I was saying, although it was a lot of put down on the Black people who are in the movement, everyone benefited. So when one community is hurt, we all will feel those effects because oppression goes, it varies, it keeps on going. That's why with the Black Lives Matter movement, people ask why are Black people so passionate about it? Well, when one 12-year-old boy dies, all of our sons died. And when one of our mothers is hurt, all of us are hurt. So yeah, I think he meant just like it's a ripple effect. As long as we all live as one in this nation, we all affect each other because we're not just brothers and sisters spiritually, but we're neighbors on this earth. And so we must care for one another or we all will be down.
Like they said, it's like a ripple effect, but also hatred is like a ripple effect. When one person hates another person, like we were just talking about with parents, you're gonna learn to hate that person again and again and again, and it's just gonna keep going. And if we stop it, like with water, if we stop a ripple, it's just gonna create another ripple. And we need to start rippling good things. We need to think if one good thing happens to another person, then another good thing is gonna happen to that person. Like you're nice to one person, they're gonna be nice to another person. We need to spread goodness. We need to have a ripple of kindness instead of a ripple of hatred.
I've heard the phrase hurt people a lot, and I think that supports this a lot because if someone is hurt, then they're not going to, I feel that sometimes they're not going to know what to do with it, and like the only logical way for them is to take it out on someone else, and it just keeps going. But if we can bring that back and cause the right ripples, I think that the world would be like a really better place because everyone would be supporting good and there would be a lot less hurt.
This question was like really funny to me because I actually was writing an essay. Like I'm currently writing an essay about this exact thing. So whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And something that like is present, like I can use it as an example, is like school threats. So even though it's like a general threat, everyone feels unsafe. And then when it's specifically focused on a group of people, everyone still feels unsafe because of something that was written on a wall. But as I was saying, I was writing about this quote. So my essay was about how leaders' decisions affect people that follow them, and so good decisions that they do can have impact, and it can like cause a ripple effect for generations to follow. And the same could be said for bad decisions. This is everyone else was saying too.
All right. We're nearing our last few questions. This last one actually was voted on the most. I'm gonna give some bit of somewhat of a premise around it. Again, citing the letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. King had talked about people that were moderate. He explained them as being individuals who were lukewarm in their support of civil rights. They silently opposed but publicly accepted the conditions that were being oppressed on other people. These were people that wanted to remain absent of tension unless they were in control of the tension. They were devoted to order over justice. Let's say that piece again. They were devoted to order over what was right, over justice. And so there came about this question, which is easier to change towards good, the bully or the bystander? I'll let you guys answer, and we don't have to cap this. Go ahead.
I really wanted to answer this question. So the bully or the bystander, for me, personally, I think it's a lot easier to change the bully rather than the bystander, because the bystander why would they be a bystander in the first place? It's because they don't want to be part of the problem. They don't want to get involved at all. Just like Dr. King said, they'd rather be devoted to order rather than justice, because they just want to live a silent, quiet life. And the bully, the one who is doing all the opposition, their lives could be changed very easily. Like something happened to them, then they would realize that whatever they're doing, it's kind of like cause and effect. So whatever they do to others, it happens to them, and they realize what they were doing was completely wrong. So it's a lot easier for them to change rather than for the bystander who's devoted to order to change.
I think it's easier to get the bystander to change, mostly because the bystander is someone that's watching all of this happen and they're not doing anything for a reason. I think if you're able to motivate that one person to step up and change, they can do it. Once again, everyone has their own sets of moral codes and ethics that they follow. So obviously the bully who is standing up for something negative has that own set of moral codes and ethics. The bystander does too, but they just don't put their opinions out as forward as the bully does. So I think getting that bystander to put their opinions out in the world would be a better thing.
I also think bystander, because I'm gonna create a scenario here. There's little Timmy, and Timmy sees two kids picking on Jimmy, and he sees Jimmy cower and Jimmy sad, and little Timmy doesn't do anything about it. So little Timmy walks away, and he's like, "Why didn't I say anything?" And I think bystanders, I think they're kind of selfish because they like to think this is going to benefit me if I don't say anything. But if we change their mindset and we think, what if this was happening to you? Then maybe they'll think, I would stand up. If this was happening to me, shouldn't I stand up for myself? Shouldn't I help myself? And then from there, we can think, shouldn't I help others?
I also believe the bystander, because if you stand by and be lukewarm and quietly watch and disagree with that thing, then you kind of selling yourself short of your potential. And if one bystander goes and talks to that bully and stands up to them, then it's a lot more bystanders than it is just bullying the victim. So if one bystander, steps up and shares their opinion and just speaks out against something, then it will cause a ripple effect. And a lot of more people will feel like bystanders or feel like their opinion doesn't matter, then they'll be inclined to, speak out and change and, just outwardly express themselves on issues,
We got 2, 3 more, and then we're going to transition to a Q&A. Or 4 more.
I think complacency can be as dangerous as outwardly hurting a group. Hello? Oh, sorry. I thought it cut out. I think the upholding of respectability, the idea that, I don't want to get too involved, can hurt. It does hurt. And I'm not asking everyone to become an activist, not everyone needs to go out to marches and stuff, but in small ways and changing your mindset, because right now you're neutral. Right now maybe you're acting neutral, but you still have preconceived notions, like you do feel hate towards a group or you don't. I think that in small ways you can change, like, yeah, in small ways you can change. I'm gonna end it there.
So I think it'll be easier to choose a bystander. Because I'm gonna be honest, like complacency is a big contributor toward racism in its current. Because in my opinion, all bystanders are cowards. Because they don't. Because I mean, at least the bully is upfront and honest about their beliefs, but the bystander will stay behind and still be complacent with it because they're gonna benefit whether not or however it goes. And plus, the bystander can be prone to action if you include empathy in the conversation. I think someone said that if you put them in their perspective, like for example, the schoolyard situation, what if you were being bullied and what if you were in the situation but you cannot like fight back as well? Wouldn't you want support? Like I feel like there is so much apathy in our current society, and I feel like it's a big contributor toward racism and complacency. Because you don't want to really think about, oh, they're just in that situation, it happens to them. But what about if it ever comes back around to you? How would you feel?
I think it's definitely important that we can easier to change the bystander because as a bully, you're kind of already set in your values and you can definitely change as a bully. It just takes longer. I know that from a young age, I was very quiet and I was definitely a bystander. I would look at something and I would think that's wrong, but I wouldn't really do anything to change. And then over time, I was like, I need to get out. I really care about other people. And I learned empathy through my mother, especially my parents and my sisters and my friends. So understanding that, and I've been able to ignite my path into becoming outside of the bystander. Okay. And working towards change. And so it has just allowed me to a world of opportunities and being the person that I wanted to see in the world, like Mahatma Gandhi said.
I love all the answers, to be honest. I'm gonna say the bully, to be honest. I want to touch on the question. I feel like there's a reason why he said lukewarm. King was in the church. He was very much a pastor. The Bible had talked about being lukewarm Christians. And I say this because at one point I was like, I'm very devoted to my faith, but I would look into it and I'd be like, I was pondering, why was it lukewarm? Why did he say lukewarm? Well, the thing is, the bystander knows what's wrong. They're just not doing anything. They've been seen. Truth has seen them, but they don't want to act on it. The bully doesn't know truth, and so the bully just keeps on doing it. The Bible has said a dog will eat its own vomit, just like a human will commit the same sin. It said that it's better to be a sinner than to be a lukewarm Christian, because if you hold truth, you're doing as worse as the bully, because you know it can change. And so I say it's easy to change the bully because they're actively choosing to change, to turn away from truth, to turn away from what is right. They don't know what's truth, but you do. I think that's an important part of even why Dr. King got so big, because people wonder, why is he saying this? He was speaking in a time where most of Congress was areas. So how could anything change? Well, God showed him truth and that walked by faith and not by sight. And so I think that, it is easier to change the bully than the bystander, because the bystander knows truth, but they're too scared to act on it. But the bully doesn't. So if you know truth, if God has shown you truth, you better act on it. And that's why he says, don't be lukewarm, because he's giving you the enlightenment. You better go somewhere with it. He said he saw over the mountaintop, and that's why he was okay knowing he was going to get assassinated. All he needed to do was see truth and know where God was going to put him. So he saw glory. He knew he wasn't going to meet it, but that was fine. Because like I said, you act on truth. That's a point of faith that I don't think people get. Act on what has been given to you, act on what has been seen. Question, of course, but act on it. So it is easier to change the bully because they do not know anything. Because thank you.
Okay, so we wanna transition to a Q&A. We will be again taking for our streamers. For our streamers, we will be taking questions. If you put them in the chat, we will write them out and share them in our panel discussion. And so we want to open up that opportunity to our audience now for the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. I am so proud of these young people. Thank you so much. And I would hope that going forward, we'll hear from them more than just once a year, because I think we need to hear your voices. I am Jackie Bolivar, the city council person, and you had mentioned earlier about government, and that government can do a lot to change. And we do have government people here today. We have my fellow council member, we have Michael Bridges, Mary Davis here earlier, and then my school board trustee, we have Angie Smith. Later this month, at Farmington Hills City Council, we will be setting our goals for this year. What do you want the council to focus on? So I'm going to ask you that question. What would you like to see us as council members focus on our goals for the next 12 months, considering what you have said earlier today?
So, one of the things I want you guys to focus on, and this kind of relates more to education, so I guess it kind of also go into the school board question. So I am a part of the diversity dialogues class in my school, and it is a class that is devoted to having deep conversations, tough conversations about social justice issues and activism. I have already kind of known about that stuff. Like, I'm more of a community activist, so I didn't really need it. But there were kids in the class who learned about things they never even knew. Like, there was a girl who didn't know the Holocaust happened, and she learned about it. She learned about anti-Semitism, and through that, she now understands. And so I would love for you guys to kind of stress Farmington Public Schools making it a requirement to take diversity dialogues at least once in your school career. Because you don't necessarily have to, like, I'm not saying it's completely change your views to fit one person's idea, but it's important to be educated. Your views they should come from education. They should come from facts. You know, Twitter is not a source of education. It needs to come from source. So I would say stress more on, diversity dialogues being a required class. Along with that, I also really want to see more African American students in AP classes. I don't know, maybe there could be a campaign for that, but like those classes give us so much opportunity, and like it's just sad seeing the amount of students who don't want to be a part of those. So, or who aren't. So I would love to see like maybe somewhat of a campaign going towards that. And along with that, I'd say that there's been a lot of coyotes in my area. I don't know if you guys have a lot of like it's stuff in there, but like I'll be so for real. It's pretty scary taking my dog out at night. So I would love to see something on that too.
For example, there have been trips, and a lot of the trips have been for like $500 or $800, and I know a lot of families that cannot afford that, and I'm not saying to lower the price. I get you have to have that price, but maybe have GoFundMes or even just like small student-run things where they just go to the door and say, hey, could you help me with this? My family can't afford it, and I would really love to go on this trip. And maybe even something that the school does or something that the whole board does, or like something like this where we can just rise the amount of people that can afford to do these things because they want to truly do it to rise in their education.
I agree with everyone else. Focusing on our education, I think, is really important because we are the youth. We're going to be the working class for tomorrow. And I definitely think that focusing on our education and educating us on different topics and just a broader range of things will help us be more educated, and it'll help us create better views for what we want, the world we want to live in tomorrow.
Thank you for being here. I would absolutely love to see some more collaboration, I think, between the school district and with some of our government officials that we have in our community. I think it's really important that we teach people from a young age, like what political engagement is and the importance of it. So I think it would be really cool if, we had some of our local government officials come in and be speakers at some of the schools, teach about not only the importance of political engagement, such as voting, but also some of the careers that exist within that space. Specifically, I'm very excited to see Black people serving in our government. So I think seeing that type of representation for young people is really important.
Building off of your last point, I just wanted to say that if we're gonna talk about the people coming in to talk to people, I think it should really start the elementary school level, because elementary school starts to build a lot of your beliefs. I'm sure I would have really appreciated it if I had the introduction of so many different worldviews at such a young age, and especially with young people at that age, it's very easy to shape their mindset. So I feel like, especially when they're the most moldable, we can talk to them about these different perspectives and what education we can go into.
So you kind of went off of what I was going to say, but I was just thinking the diversity on dialogues class definitely should be essential. But I know in 7th grade I had the opportunity to do religious diversity, so I visited a Sikh temple and a mosque and a church and all those. So if there could be profits donated to get elementary students to go to those and have the exposure as well. And even have police officers come in or people of different ethnicities come in elementary school and the middle school, just to use that diversity that we see in Farmington public schools.
So my first hour, my teacher, Ms. Price, was discussing how teachers in my school in Farmington have to cut back on paper because on how much they print, because of apparently we're running out of paper in my school. I understand, I respect, budgets and stuff like that, but, teachers, the stuff they go through in our schools and the way they're underpaid, I feel that that's something that you guys probably also want to focus on is, getting a more of a supply of paper to our schools, making sure our teachers don't have to, be more fiscal when it comes to how much they print. They give so much, and I feel like that shouldn't be one of the things they have to give in. But I respect all of you guys, and I thank you for your work, because I know you really are trying to put in your work. Thank you.
We have one question, and this will be our final question unless we have one from any of our streamers. Okay, and then I want to give our panelists an opportunity to share how they will continue Dr. King's legacy and dream using 3 words or less.
So first, I'm not asking any questions. I just want to say, as your board member, I am so proud of each and every one of you. A few of you I know personally. I've been in the schools, I've worked with you. Although I cannot handle the coyote situation, deer and wild turkey as well. So this is her thing. But when it comes down to the paper and the visiting, that's up to me and my colleagues. I do work hand in hand closely with Mr. Bridges here and with our city council as well as Ms. Boldenware. We will be doing some things. There are things that you all have just put in front of me that as a board member, that it's my job to do. Because November 8th of 2022, it was your parents that put me in, and voted for me. Not only did they put me in, I work for you. I work for each and every one of you. So it's my job to make sure you have paper. It is my job to make sure I come in and introduce myself. I do go in and read to the little ones in March, dressed in costume and everything. But at the end of the day, it is my due diligence to make sure I still come and visit your buildings, your middle schools, and your high schools. I haven't done that this year. I used to have coffee and conversations with the community and talk to community members. But now, after hearing this and watching what Farmington has put before us today, which is Farmington's finest, each and every one of you. I wasn't doing a conversation or hot chocolate or cookie. I'm gonna work with Mr. Smith, and we will have your peers come and talk to me and tell me what your needs and wants are. I'm here for 6 years, if the good Lord lets me stay. And I'm gonna make sure I take care of each and every one. Thank you so much.
So this is definitely been an impactful 60 minutes. It's been a powerful 60 minutes. Would you agree? Before they share, because I don't want anything to be lost in translation, and you've heard it, so the word was shared, thankful. We today are thankful for you. We thank you for your courage, for your willingness to step forward, for your willingness to share your thoughts, your truth, your experiences with us, and we're grateful for that. And so we're going to end with you sharing how you will continue to reflect, show the message, the life, the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King going forward, using 3 words or less.
Politics, kindness, faith.
I'd say announcement, empathy, and peace.
Empathy, acceptance. I had one word. It was a word. Security.
Being outspoken.
The Black Student Union. Learn, teach, and love.
Respect, empathy, and acceptance.
Accepting everyone endlessly. Justice using empathy.
Advocating through leadership.
Action, personality, and respect.
Can you please say it in honor of presenting to the country? All right, so with that being said, they're gonna head off and have some lunch.
Can we get a round of applause for Mr. Smith for leading these students and putting this together? So I'm Crystal. I'm head of children's services here at the Farmington Community Library, one of the teams